Hey, what can I say? We're back again, and this is going to be part 3, soul-to-soul connection, and this is going to be the negotiate part. Um, One of the things that I wanted to say here before I get into the negotiate part, which I've forgotten to mention in the first 2 videos, that in quite a few cases of these soul-to-soul connections that take place and people go into the bubble of for a period of time. In many cases, and I want to emphasize this, it does not mean that a relationship is pending in any way, shape, or form. I know I've said this in other videos, but there does seem to be somewhat of a belief system out there that if you go into the bubble of phase with someone, that there is going to be some form of a relationship taking place, and that's not the case. In a good many of these situations, what happens is they go through certain phases of growth. They kind of negotiate certain feelings, certain aspects of themselves that need to be corrected, and they move on. Now, I want to go with the negotiate here in a little bit of a, what some people might think, a different direction. And it's this, I'm going to kind of try to address this from a higher self point of view. A lot of these connections that are taking place at a soul-to-soul level are being arranged, for lack of a better expression, by higher self or higher selves. And in a great many cases, higher self is not looking at the possibility of a relationship. What they're looking at is the possibility of the two individuals in question may be familiar with each other through having expressed in different soul groups on different occasions and different timelines. So they may be well acquainted to each other at that level, perhaps not consciously, but at that level. And higher selves will arrange for these two people to come together so that they can actually negotiate through some of the issues that need to be going on. And what I mean by negotiate, if I can put it that way, is when these soul-to-soul connections take place, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of things that are going on in the dynamics of it, and I think I've attempted to try to give you some examples of that, be that they may not have been the greatest in the world, but give you some examples of exactly what's going on behind the scenes that many people are not aware of because they're involved with it and it's not readily seen by them. But in regards to the situation is we're all going through learning curves and these soul-to-soul connections are coming together for the purpose of, in some cases, actually bringing people together in a form of a traditional relationship format, but at a different vibrational level without all of the impediments that were there before. And in some cases, it's just to bring the two people together so that they can work through some of the things that they need to do before they get ready for another soul-to-soul connection at a higher vibrational level. And in doing that, what happens is, in many cases, the negotiate part is something that needs to be addressed here in this way. A lot of people, when these connections happen, try to talk their way through it based on their own experience that they've had in the past, and inevitably it doesn't seem to work. And the situation comes up where you need to kind of sit down with the other person and you need to kind of try to negotiate with the other person some kind of a verbal discussion that can allow you to express both of your feelings or both of the situations that are coming out with the both of you, and to be able to work through them or negotiate that. Now, I'm going to kind of try to explain it this way. I'm not going to do a great job here. I know this. I can smell it coming, but I'm going to give it my best shot. You, first of all, when these connections happen, there's a lot of fear-based stuff comes up between the two people involved. There's the loss of control, a sense of overwhelming sense of loss of individuality. All of the issues start coming up. And I kind of suggest to some people that what they may want to consider doing is actually talking with the other person if there's another person involved, or if it's just one person, you can do it with yourself. There's nothing wrong with positive self-talk in that situation. And talk to the other person and find out, first of all, what it is that they're actually feeling or experiencing. I've seen too many situations where people are having this intense connection between the two of them, and one of them is having it really intense, and the other one is a little intense, but not anywhere as intense as the other, and it will vary from individual to individual. It is probably a good idea to find out exactly what the connection is, where it is at its level of intensity, and also find out if the other person is actually experiencing it. I actually have seen a few cases where the other person is not really aware of what the other person is experiencing, or if they're experiencing anything, because they're afraid that they may lose the connection, or the other person might run away or get lost or whatever they do. And this is where kind of negotiating with the other person in this particular situation. The other way that you can do this is if it's actually come down to the situation where the both of you have reached a point where you understand that there's a lot of issues going on at this particular point, and you realize that you're pushing each other's buttons. I'm going to make a suggestion here, and it's this. I've done this for people that I've actually worked with, and I'm going to do it here right on YouTube, is you need to allow, if the opportunity presents itself, an opportunity for the both of you to be able to express the energetic connection between the two of you. Now that can be done several ways. You can actually, if you're on a long distance type situation, you can do it on Skype or whatever means you want to do, and just sit and meditate and focus on the energy of the other person. That will give you some connection as to the energy that's going on. Or you may want to, after doing that, sit down and negotiate with the person some kind of terms of understanding, if I can put it that way. Let's call it that, terms of understanding of what that person is experiencing and what you are experiencing, so it gives you some kind of a baseline to work with of where the both of you are going. The other thing is this, you need to find out what are the other person's feelings, if I can use that word, and what do they think about down the road conceivably could happen or may happen with the connection. It's kind of a good idea. Everyone is unique and everyone is, special in their own right. But everyone has a sense of who they are, what they want, and where they're going, depending upon where they are in their own spiritual growth or awakening. You want to find out where the person thinks or feels this kind of a connection could go. Just kind of, negotiate with them to get a sense or a feeling of where it's going. The thing that happens here is, in these connections, and I fully understand this, one or sometimes even both people can really lose their sense of confidence as to who they are, because this whole connection seems so different, so overwhelming, so they don't understand exactly all of what's going on. And then, of course, they, like I said, they'll get up on YouTube or Facebook or something like that and get a whole pile of information, get even more confused. So it's a really good idea to negotiate with the person that you have the connection with as to where the both of you are at, so that you have some kind of an understanding, and then allow the situation to begin to unfold in a direction. I'm going to remind people here of this, and I think this is the proper video to do it in. Again, I'm going to go back to the very beginning, and a good number of you can recall when you met this person that there were a whole pile of synchronicities, a whole pile of signs, a whole pile of numbers, a whole pile of little things that happen that by some strange power, some nebulous force, something beyond you that brought the two of you together that simply blew you away as to how it ever happened in the first place. There's something or other behind the scenes. And the reason that I say this is because what happens, and I've noticed this quite a lot with a lot of people, is once they get into the bubble love and then it starts to come down, what happens is they lose touch with that higher aspect or the higher self or the higher selves of the individuals in question. And suddenly they want to take control consciously of what's going on between the two of them, and this is where the problems start. You need to understand that something, that source, that power, that something behind the scene that arranged all of this stuff in the first place, you've now taken control away from it through your belief systems, or I'm going to do it my way, or I'm going to listen to my girlfriend or my buddy, I'm going to follow their advice based on their experience of relationships, and I'm going to get even more confused. You need to understand that these connections have a purpose, and the main purpose is not necessarily a relationship between two people, all right? Relationships do and will happen, but overall soul growth, if I can put it that way, is not dependent upon having a relationship with another person. So higher self, or the power that be, sees it as much more than we do as individuals. So it might be a good idea to reestablish connection with higher self and ask higher self to assist or invite higher self to step back in, or the power of the source, whatever it is, to step back in and assist you in negotiating between the two of you for a positive, creative outcome in whatever way that it's going to go, and understand that these soul-to-soul connections, I'm going to use the word higher self, I'm going to use the word divinely guided, if you will. I'm going to use the expression arranged by a higher power, if you will, for a multitude of purposes, and they go way beyond just the relationship concept that most of us have instilled within our belief systems. And that's what's taking place on the planet now. And the negotiating part of it is something that needs to be learned to do, along with negotiate and navigate. I think probably are two of the things that a lot of people are having problems with at the moment at this particular point. And understand that you have that guidance behind the scenes, and I'm using all of the different terms here, who can and will assist you when you allow and don't try to take charge or control of the situation that you are involved with another person. There is an outcome. I have yet to see one of these connections that I don't consider a blessing, even though the persons or people involved may have had it go into a real mess, a disaster, whatever. It's still a blessing in the long term for what will come out of it in a way of soul growth for the individual person at that particular point in time. So the negotiating part is a very important one. The other thing is this, and I wanted to mention, is if the two are actually and have made the decision and are aware that they are actually moving into some kind of a relationship format, again, sitting down and actually negotiating and expressing how they see and feel that they would like to see it manifest with the guidance. You have input. Understand this. You are not dictated to by higher self. You still have free will and choice here. I want to emphasize that point. But it's a leap of faith. It's a trust thing between you and higher self as to how this is going to go. If you want to take charge, you're free and free choice to do that. If you want it to go your way or the highway, that's entirely up to you too. What I'm saying to you is you have an option available to you in the sense if you can see the bigger picture of what's going on. It's all about soul growth, and it's all about negotiating with a particular person as to where they are, how they're addressing the situation, feeling them out, as it were, here as to what they're going through, and allowing the opportunity. It's communication, but it's different. It's different in the sense that it's not done from an adversarial point of view or expression. It's done from an understanding perspective between the two individuals. They're trying to understand. And when you're doing this, you're actually allowing that higher source, the guidance, whatever you want to call it, to participate in the negotiating that's going on between the two of you, and things can go very, very smoothly at that point. All right. I didn't want to make this one too long again, so I'm going to cut it here and leave it at this particular point as I want to finish up with number 4 here. So, at that particular point, I'm just going to say I'm rather enjoying doing these segments for you here, and hopefully there's some of the information that's going to help some people out there. Have a great day, everybody.